Hello, everybody. This is Matthew Brand. Welcome to the Magnum Creed Podcast. And today I am going to be talking about Senator Betty Jean Alexander's stance on the new laws that are coming out. So let's be honest. One of the things that are a problem with her stance, right? One of the cons is that it opens people up for police coming in to their house with guns, people trying to remove their children, your dogs getting shot, family members you love getting guns pointed at them, and your children being taken away, all because someone doesn't like that you have a normal gun. That's all there really is to it, right? And the only implementation that you could really have with these laws is with Karens, right? Because unless police are going to be coming in your house and checking on you all the time just because you own a gun, right? And registering you, nationally, unless they're going to do that, then there's really no way that they can do this. All the whole purpose of this is just to create other opportunities for them to charge you for stuff, just like with weed, right? There is no real reason weed is still illegal. Every senator, every House congressman, everybody knows that the United States is pretty much in agreement that whether you smoke weed or not, it should be legal. The vast majority of people agree. If they put it to a Democratic vote tomorrow, weed would be federally legal. So why isn't it? Because they want to still keep avenues open to charge you. If you live in Michigan, right, where this Betty Jean Alexander is, what's going on is weed is technically legal in the state, but it's illegal federally, which means it still opens avenues for them to charge you if they want to. You can say, "Oh, well, no, they can't charge me. This it says it's legal in the state." That means they get to choose whether or not to charge you. That does not mean they cannot charge you. Federal law trumps state law, and if you own firearms, right? If you're educated about firearms, you know that if you have a firearm and you smoke weed or you have weed or you have a medical marijuana card, you're in trouble. And this is what most of this boils down to. Most of these laws, these things that they're trying to so called prevent, would be way more cut down by education than any of these laws. So why not the education? Well, we have a culture that focuses on attention and doesn't necessarily demonizes education, but it dislikes education, right? The government, you know, companies, all kinds of stuff like that, they don't want you educated, right? A lot of people in power, whether it be through monetary means or by governmental means or by means of position, right? So it doesn't necessarily, they might not be a government or they might not be, be the richest person in the world, but they may be in a person of power, right? Person of influence, if that makes any sense. They don't want you educated. They don't. They want you to spend a lot of your time trying to get attention, becoming reliant is really the end goal. They want you reliant, right? And if you're reliant, then you have to do whatever they say when they want you to do it, right? If you're relying on too much government assistance, on one hand, it seems good that the government should assist people who are in need, but they typically don't do that. People with mental conditions don't get the treatment that they need. People who are violent beyond, means of helping, they leave them to go right back out on the street. People who are work people, right, get garbage sentences, right? We all know this. We all know this, right? Because we don't get justice, and people, and I'm paraphrasing a very popular quote by Malcolm X, but when people are not, or when the government does not provide protection for people in their property, it becomes uh, a man is expected, right? It is his right to do anything and everything to do so. Let me rephrase that. It is a man's right, natural born right, right, to do anything and everything necessary to protect his property and his life and his well being and his family when the government fails to do so. And when someone breaks in your house and threatens your family or your friends or your loved ones or whatever the case may be, right? It is in your natural born right to do anything and everything to stop them from doing that. And if you know that likelihood increases, right, like it would in a violent city, regardless of whether or not the government allows you to do so, you know people who feel like they're compromised in that situation don't just get to move. I see a lot of people in the suburbs say that, well, why don't you just move? A lot of people don't have that option. So they do what they have to do to survive. Whether that means getting a firearm, whether that means getting a firearm with higher capacity, whether that means getting a firearm that's black and scary looking. Regardless of the situation, they're going to do what they feel necessary to take care of themselves. And if the government makes it illegal, it's a setup. That's what the whole point of the Bill of Rights is. Making those things illegal are setting people up. So they're not things that you're allowed to do. They're things the government's not allowed to do. That was the whole point of the shall not be infringed, because if the government acts crazy, which they have before, they still will. They experimented on black people into the 70s. They didn't care about you. They never cared about you, right? And if for whatever reason they decide that they want to force you to do things that people by and large don't agree with, they're coming to your house or they're coming to you with guns. That's why all these shootings happen, right? Breonna Taylor, Amir Locke, uh, you know, all of these people who get into these encounters with police. There's a girl, she was right laying in her bed. They were looking for an uncle that didn't even live at the house anymore. They had the right to come in the house. They had a warrant, but the guy was already in jail. And what happens? She ends up getting shot because she has the natural reaction of grabbing a gun when people are bursting in her house and waking her up. And they shoot her up. Her boyfriend even warned them. They said, can you please let me at least wake her up, because she's not going to know what's going on. You're going to freak her out. She's asleep. They said, no, you're not allowed to do that. We don't want you letting this guy who's non-existent in the house. The boyfriend, it was like, that was my uncle. He doesn't live here anymore. We've owned this house for a long time. He's not here. They said, nope, too bad. We're going in there. And what happened? This young girl ends up getting shot. This is what is on the end of these laws that you create, right? They're not giving you these cons. So what are her reasons for creating these laws? Do they have pros? Or there's something sensible about all of this that makes it worth it? Well, she gives a lot of emotional fluff in a lot of these places, but what most of the stuff she's saying is without context, right? It lacks a lot of context. So, to be honest, at best is misleading, and at worst is intentionally deceptive. I mean, I don't really have any other means I could say it, right? For example, data from the U.S. Centers for Gun Disease and Control of Prevention show that 45,000 people died from firearm-related causes in 2020, a 15% increase from the previous year. Now, here's the deal. Says source Griffords. So, note a couple things. One, that is an anti-gun group. Two, most of those deaths are suicides. That is left out of there. Three, firearm deaths have gone consistently down, right? Over the years, consistently down until the pandemic. So honestly, that 15% increase is most likely due to the pandemic. Suicides in general have gone up due to the pandemic, right? Is something to consider. It is not considered in her email. Moving on, the freedom to kill is not and should not be more important than the freedom to live and learn in peace. We don't have a freedom to kill. We have a freedom to self-defense. Where on earth do you get this freedom to kill from? Once again, misleading, at best, intentionally deceptive, most likely, right? More emotional fluff, 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 right? Here we go. Now we're going back to some statistics. Let's see if they're misleading. 4.6 million children live in homes with unlocked or unsupervised firearms, with 75%. Now, once again, she's already come off as misleading, and she's taking all of her information from organizations bent towards getting rid of guns. So, that being the case, with 75% of those children knowing exactly where those guns are kept, where is she getting these statistics from? I wasn't asked anything. I bet most of you weren't asked anything. Where is this coming from? That's a very strange statistic. And 4.6 million children, is that in Michigan? I doubt it. I think there's just a broad number. Someone took a very selective statistic and broadened the number with a calculator, right? Most likely, right? And it doesn't even say estimated. It just says 4.6 million children live in homes with unlocked or unsupervised firearms. Okay, moving on, right? Because these people, they take money from people. So we're not stupid. That's what they're doing. All right. Every year, nearly 350 children under the age of 18 are unintentionally shot. She doesn't even say under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. All right. So here's the deal. Under the age of 18, that is a very, very broad range. And once again, this does not open up to any type of real subjective information, right? Or sorry, objective information. It doesn't really open up. 350 children under the age of 18. Now, this is the part to really focus on, because what they're really doing is they're painting the picture of young children, right, who accidentally get a hold of firearms. And yes, we could do something about that with education, because honestly, if a gun is unloaded, if it's locked, has a child safety locked on it, and it is, kept out of the reach of children, that covers three things that completely prevent a young child from shooting themselves or others, right? Because a young child is not particularly capable of getting in a lockbox, removing the lock off of the gun, whatever the case may be, right? And if they do such a, I would say, such a thing, right, they can't load a magazine. So usually what happens is someone is carrying a gun, they have around in the chamber, they're carrying off body, and when they leave the gun off body, whether it be, in some different spot of the car, whatever the case may be, a very young child, right, not an older child, very young child, typically may get a hold of it, and they're usually not being supervised by the adult. That's another thing to really, really hammer home. When you hear these cases of children getting shot, it's usually a bunch of children at home watching the children, right? Or the people have less education. Once again, education would fix most of this, because most people do, by all means, try to keep their guns away from their children, but some people intend to act stupid. There's no law that is going to fix the minor amount of stupid. But when you have, if the number is 350, right, and we have 400 million people in this country, and we're talking ages range from 18 all the way, what it says, under 18, right? The age of, under the age of 18. So let's say 17 all the way down to little babies, right? In a year. When we're talking about those really young kids who get shot, we're typically talking about the excessive amount of stupid. We're not even talking about, basic. You don't have to be intelligent, to store your firearm safely. You just have to try. And most of the time, if your kid is either educated or you're educated, you understand safety, and you understand that just doing a few things, right? Unloading it, right? And maybe putting a child safety lock if you're storing it away. That's all it typically takes. All. But yes, a lockbox, if you're storing it away, can't hurt. But here's the deal when it comes to those types of things. Once you get older kids, lockboxes don't really do anything, right? If it's coming, because we're talking about stealing now. That is a different subject than a little kid getting a hold of a firearm and accidentally doing something. We're talking about something intentional and unintentional. Two very different things. What a 17-year-old does with a firearm is very different than what a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old does with a firearm. Keep that in mind. Between 70 and 90% of guns used in use. This is a dumb statistic. this is Between 70 and 90% of guns used in youth suicides, unintentional shootings among children, and school shootings perpetrated by under 18s are taken from a home and from homes of relatives in France. You've just named everybody, so it's a dumb statistic. Okay, so they weren't taken from strangers' houses? What? Yeah, they're going to be taken from people that they know. Very People rarely break it when even normal theft happens, right? If you're stealing a PlayStation 5, right? A camera, whatever the case may be, right? Cell phones. Let's say somebody has a collection of phones in their house and someone breaks in and steals them all, right? They are being stolen from somebody who knows them. Most violent crimes happen from somebody who knows you, right? If you get punched in the face at work, you knew the person at work. Most strangers don't walk up and punch you in the face, right? That's just something to consider. Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't happen the other way around, but most anything involves somebody who knows you. That's like that. Most accidents happen within so many miles of the home, right? Very close to home, because most people don't drive that far from their home, right? It's like, oh, most accidents happen within, let's say, 50 miles of home. Let's just throw that statistic out, 50 miles of home. Yeah, because that's the extent that most people travel on a daily basis. They don't go that far. So it's a statistic. It doesn't mean that the area around your house magically becomes more dangerous or everybody becomes super reckless as soon as they get within miles of their house. It just means that most accidents happen where people drive. Yeah. Most car accidents happen with people in the car. It doesn't make it. It's a dumb statistic. Could have just put that under emotional fluff, but I wanted to explain that for anybody who sees that and like, hey, yeah, they're right. It doesn't make as much sense as they try to make it sound like. Approximately 380,000 guns are stolen from gun owners in the United States each year, many of which are subsequently trafficked or used in violent crimes. So what you're saying is that people steal guns and then sell them? That's not a shocker. The law has nothing to do with that situation, right? So because the whole point is, as they're summarizing the bill, emotional fluff, emotional fluff, emotional fluff. Guns would have been kept in secure lockbox in a location a reasonable person would believe is secure or securely locked with a locking device, right? To prevent injury and provide criminal penalties if failure to safely secure the gun results in injury or death. That's already a thing. So what you're trying to say, like, let's say if somebody accidentally gets a hold of a gun, what they're trying to do is open you up for liability, even if you completely lock it away, because that the way you locked it away is going to be now open to interpretation over whether, well, did you super lock it away? Did you lock it away where we felt it was good enough, right? They're just trying to open ways to charge you more. That's all this really is. And whenever they open more ways to charge you, the more guns you get in your face. There's just logic, right? They're concerned about you having the guns, but they're not concerned about the guns that get in your face when being concerned about you having guns. It's a odd irony. This bill would make complementary changes to sentencing guidelines to reflect changes created by the main bills. They're most likely these bills have a bunch of extra crap shoved in them, right? Emotional fluff, emotional fluff, emotional fluff, right? Research shows that from Brown Medical School suggests that compared to people who keep their firearms unlocked Here's they left that part out. Unlocked and or loaded at home, individuals who stored their firearms safely were less likely to die by firearm suicide. That doesn't make it so. Okay, hold on. People who lock their gun away are less likely to commit suicide with the gun that they. It's your gun. What? I mean, none of that makes any sense, right? Because most people are in use of their gun. They carry it. Now, I'm not saying most people carry their gun. I'm saying that if it's your gun, it's your gun. You are capable of using it. It's not locked away from you. Ergo, it's in use. If it's your home defense gun, right? It's in use. If it's your gun you have that you keep on your person, it's in use. If it's the gun you keep with you, right? Because people, here's what they're not really analyzing or they're not really accepting. A lot of people don't live with children. This only really applies to people who live with children. Other people, once again, you're not really stopping them unless a gun is super hidden, right? Like you have some type of elaborate way of keeping the gun away from everybody, or right, a big or it's in something extremely secure because the enemy of thieves is time. Really, that's what's going on. But a lot of the time, these thieves are in known location of the gun because they're old enough to have become in known location of the gun. A 16-year-old, once again, is not the same as what's going on with a 3 or a 5-year-old. Anyway, that was my summary of what was going on with her storage laws. Right now, there are other bills that she's got, like red flag laws. We already know that's just a law that legalizes carrying. And then you have what is the other law she got? Because I'll go and look, but I've looked through this whole thing. Right, limiting magazine capacity. This is a really big one because most guns have a 15, 17, or 12 round capacity. That's the vast majority of guns. The most common guns sold in the United States, period, are the Glock 19 and the Taurus G2 series, right? Taurus G2 because it's very affordable. Glock 19 because it is so common. It's pretty much universal with a lot of accessories, right? Those are the two most commonly sold guns. One has a 15 to 17 round capacity and can take magazines up to 30. And the same with the Taurus G2C. It has a 12, 13 round capacity and can take magazines up to 30. These are the most common guns that are sold in the United States. But when they are sold stock from the store, they have a 12 round magazine. The Glock has a 15 round magazine. The M&P, which is also a very commonly sold gun, has a 15 round magazine. Now, when you take all of that into consideration, you've just opened pretty much everyone in Michigan up to legal scrutiny, available to be charged, because someone in Michigan, right, almost every house in Michigan owns a gun that fits this bill. So what? We're just going to have a whole nother weed situation on our hands. Everybody gets to the point where they're doing something illegal to the point where, I mean, screw it, right? Everybody's illegal, right? Cigarettes and weed are illegal. Okay, well, everybody's still doing it, right? Prohibition, right? You're creating not even a black market because so many people own it. It's irrelevant. Are you expecting people to turn it in? You think that everybody in Michigan is going to turn in their high capacity magazine? Do you think criminals are going to turn it in? I'm not getting into right wing, left wing politics here. Does anybody really think criminals are turning in their people who aren't allowed to have the gun in the first place are turning in their lower capacity magazines or their higher, once again, not high capacity magazines, just higher than the low capacity magazines, right? You think they're turning that in? That's nonsense. This whole thing, right? This lady, what's her name? Betty Jean Alexander. This is the epitome of what happens when your representative doesn't actually represent you. Let's face it. You can put it to a poll right now. You know weed would be legal tomorrow if you put it into a Democratic vote. And you know if people voted on this tomorrow, even though it should be illegal to vote on in the first place, that people would not be in agreement to this bill, right? And they use excuses like, oh, well, people weren't in favor of seatbelts. How many people, once again, nothing's wrong with wearing a seatbelt. I agree. Go ahead and wear a seatbelt. But how many people have gone through it because a cop used an excuse they weren't wearing the seatbelt? Yeah, I got into a talk with my mother one day, and she went to go get a pizza. And she took a real long time to go get that pizza. And when she finally came back, I said, what took you so long? She said, I got pulled over. Now, actually, I'm going to tell the whole story. Before my mom, left, I was like, you're black, right? I don't remember what we were fussing about. I was like, no, you do remember you're black, right? And she said, I'm not black. I'm mulatto. I was like, okay, whatever. She leaves because my family is mixed, right? She leaves and she takes a really long time to come back with the pizza. And when she finally does, I'm like, what took you to the pizza? The pizza's cold. What happened? She said, I got pulled over. I was like, why? Well, because the police officer thought I didn't have a seatbelt on. He couldn't tell if she had a seatbelt on or not. He just wanted to pull her over. My mom always wears a seatbelt, honestly. And I don't remember not seeing her wear the seatbelt, but even regardless, it's not the point. The point is, they're just needless excuses to pull you over. Hey, I noticed your headlight out. Where are you going? Right? As soon as that conversation starts, they're looking for something. Why are you coming from there? You know, what do you do this place, right? They're fishing for things. This is what police do. Now, I'm not going to tell police how to do their job, but the more laws that are open to charge you with, the more people are going to needlessly have their lives ruined over things that wouldn't have helped anything. What would these laws benefit, right? If someone already gets a lock every time they buy a gun. So the thing that people are most concerned with, right, little children getting shot, that would be prevented by unloading the gun and putting the lock on it. What we really need is education. And I don't know if anybody bothered to listen to this long, but what we really need is education. That's really all there is to it. Unload your gun, put a lock on it, put it out of reach of children. That's all. And when your children get old enough, teach them not to touch guns. It's simple, but you won't always be there. They may go over someone's house who are less concerned with children's safety. They might not even be concerned with their own safety, right? And it may not even be a gun. It may be poison, right? Teach your kids, don't drink cups that sit on the counter just because they have, colorful looking liquids in them. Those are things you should teach your kids, right? But responsibility isn't something we focus on in this society anymore. Education isn't something we focus in this society anymore, right? We have hundreds of millions of guns, right? Why don't we teach people about using them safely or being safe around them? That doesn't make any sense. We teach people to look both ways when they cross the street, right? Because it's to avoid getting hit by a car. People know how cars work, right? Ignition goes here. We teach people to wear their seatbelt, right? Why don't we teach them, some basic things that can help them keep their guns safe? Well, instead we tell them, oh, just don't have it in the house, right? That's like telling someone, just don't drive. You don't know their situation. You do Uber Eats, you do Lyft, you do, all those type of jobs. You may end up in homes, in places where you would rather not be, but you're doing it because you have to get by. That doesn't mean you're doing something illegal. It just means that your situation is not favorable and the government doesn't get to decide that, you know, too bad, you know, be at risk. That's not their problem. That's not their fault. They don't live where you live. They're not trying to make it where you make it. They're not going to pay your way. They're not going to pay your bills. They're not taking care of you. You have to take care of you. The police are not going to teleport to your house if somebody breaks in. They're not going to teleport, when somebody is assaulting your sister. You can call them, but there's too many videos. I'm not saying that the police don't do anything, but there are too many videos. There's too many blatant evidence of the police showing up very late or treating the person who's the good guy, or a person who's innocent like a criminal. It just happens too often to wave it off. This is what this lady, Betty Jean Alexander, whatever her name is opening people up for. It's dangerous. I don't want to see anybody get hurt over this. I know people who had to make those hard decisions, right? Whether they were going to protect themselves illegally because, they didn't know what else to do. What else are they going to do? They live in a horrible area, in a horrible place where people they die. I have family members who were killed, right? I have family members who had their stomachs slashed open, their guts spilled out, right? They survived that. But why should they be subject to it? Just because the government thinks that they don't deserve the right to have what they need to protect themselves. That every place should be shall issue. Don't tell me that they wouldn't, if they couldn't pass it, they wouldn't pass every single gun control law in the world. Oh, we're not wanting to take your guns. We just want that every normal gun to be illegal the way it comes from the store. That doesn't make any sense. Don't listen to that. Don't. Period. End of story. I'm not going to tell you how to think. I'm not even going to tell you not to vote for this lady. She may have other policies that you may be in favor for. But if you have any feelings for stuff that happened with people like Breonna Taylor, or if you have any feelings for stuff that happened with people like Amir Locke, if you have any feelings for people who get arrested over things like marijuana and end up having the rest of their life just ruined over something so stupid, right? Over, selling harmless substances, trying to make it way. If you have any feelings over you being able to do with your body what you want to, right? Let's move guns. Do with your body, right? You have a right to choose what you can and cannot do with your body, right? You have any feelings over being old enough to risk your life in the military, but not being old enough to buy a cigarette, right? If these things give you feelings, maybe you should consider avoiding people like this when they talk about these type of laws, right? Because they're not going to suffer the consequences, right, if you get hurt because of the laws they put in place. They are not. If police in the interaction with you go south because of a law they put in place like this, they suffer nothing. Period. You don't need more laws. Most of the time you need education and you want people to get along. But they don't want education. They want you focused on getting attention. They don't want you to get along. They want you at each other's throats. Because even if you look, this happens with people on the right or whatever too. And I really advise all these politicians stop doing that. But of course they're going to keep doing it. They want you hyped and angry against the other people so that you'll vote for them. Because they're not doing anything for you anymore. They don't even try to pretend they're doing anything for you anymore. They just try to pretend that the other person's bad so better me, right? This is what they want to convince you. A is bad, so vote for B. Not because B is good, but just because A is bad. Because the more they demonize one group, the less they have to do to get in the position, right? Kept hearing, oh, Biden's going to make weed legal, right? Oh, Biden's going to what is it called? He's going to get rid of student loans, right? All these little things that they say these politicians are going to do. They said the same thing with Trump beforehand. Oh, he's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to do this. These politicians, we already know that they don't do much beforehand. They make all these promises. They don't pull through most of the time. However, the more antagonistic they have people at each other's throat, right? And the more you get hateful of other people just because they vote differently than you or they don't agree with everything you say, the less they actually have to do to appease you because they win just by not being the other person. But when people do stuff like this, I personally would not vote for them. Like that is a solid no for me. That tells me you really do not care about the vast majority of people and what they want in their safety and making life so that they can feel free in their own homes. That's pathetic. So whatever, if that's what Betty Jean Alexander wants to do, that's fine. I'm not calling her pathetic. Let me be very clear. I'm saying the bills, these things that they're voting on, that's pathetic. That's how little the concern is, right? So I don't go with the insulting thing. All right, I'm not one of them. I'm not going to call her. I don't even, I'm not going to call her names. I'm not going to be like, oh, these, you know, gun hating people in Washington. I'm not. That's not the point. I think education is really the answer, right? I'm a Christian. If you're not, fine. But is one of the proverbs: seek wisdom, right? Seek it. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I recognize that I can constantly be learning. If you have opinions on guns or you are kind of undecided on stuff like that, just take a little while to look at both sides of the coin. Listen to some debates, listen to what's really going on before trying to lead everything and, collect everything to fit your own opinion. There's a real reason why most people don't lose, most pro-gun people don't lose these gun debates is because the other people have to put laugh tracks and get attention and, try to gather people all on their side when they say something because in all essence, their logic on the opposing gun control thing doesn't make any sense. It almost never does. I don't have to beat you on the head with the hammer about it, right? But these bills, not only do they not really do much in terms of helping, if anything at all, but the cons are extreme, right? The cons are extreme. Just consider that.